I never thought I'd be sitting here rewriting the ruins of my own marriage, but maybe putting it into words will make me finally accept what I've done. My name is Claire, I'm 26, and until recently, my life looked almost picture perfect. I had a stable job, a peaceful home, and a husband who loved me with a depth I never fully understood until I managed to break him. His name is Daniel. 27, calm, logical, gentle in a way that never felt weak. We'd been together for 7 years, married for 5. We had plans, real ones. A baby, maybe this year. Eventually 4 kids, or so we had joked. 2 boys, 2 girls. Names picked. Dreams lined up like a neat little row of dominoes. And I was the one who kicked them all over. It didn't happen suddenly. If it had been one big decision, maybe my brain would have screamed at me. But it started small, so small that I didn't even realize I was stepping off the path until there was no path left. It started with Ryan. He delivered packages to my office. That's all he was supposed to be, someone who handed me boxes and left. But he was easy to talk to, that kind of charming where everything he says feels a little mischievous. At first, the conversations were harmless. A few minutes here and there, then 10 minutes, then more. Then I started timing my lunch break to match his delivery window without admitting that's what I was doing. I told myself it was harmless attention. Everyone has friendly people in their lives. But deep down, I knew the truth. I looked forward to him. That alone should have been the first red flag. One afternoon, everything shifted. He handed me a package and didn't walk away. Instead, he lingered, unusually quiet, almost nervous. Then he said, "Can I ask you something personal?" I should have told him no. I should have ended every possibility right there. But I didn't. I smiled. I encouraged it. He inhaled slowly and said, "I'm really attracted to you. And I feel like you feel it too." My entire body went numb. Not because I was offended, but because I did feel something. And instead of doing the right thing, I hesitated. I didn't shut it down. I didn't walk away. I basically told him, with my silence and my blush and my stupid, shaky laugh, that he wasn't wrong. After that, we were awkward. I avoided him. He avoided looking directly at me. And I carried this heavy, shameful knot in my stomach. I told myself I was happy with Daniel because I was. I truly was. I told myself Ryan's attention didn't matter because it shouldn't have. But it did. Instead of cutting Ryan off, I kept the spark alive. Just enough to keep that secret part of me excited. Just enough to betray Daniel without ever touching another man. Eventually, my guilt twisted into curiosity. I started reading about emotional affairs, open marriages, poly relationships. At first I told myself I was just trying to understand why I was feeling what I was feeling. But the more I read, the more I entertained the idea. A stupid thought. A selfish thought. Something that should never have crossed my mind. One Sunday morning, while Daniel and I sat together scrolling our phones, I opened my mouth and said the worst sentence I've ever said. "Hey, what do you think about open marriages?" He blinked, confused. "Are you talking about couples sleeping with other people?" I tried to sound casual. "Yeah, I just read an article about it. A lot of people do it now." The look he gave me wasn't anger. It was disgust. Cold, sharp disgust. "If you want to sleep with someone else," he said, "you get a divorce." I panicked and laughed it off, changed the subject, pretended it was nothing. But I saw something crack in him that day, something I couldn't put back. A week later, after we'd been intimate, he suddenly asked, "Who are you thinking about when you brought up open marriages?" My blood turned to ice. I lifted my head from his chest and tried to play dumb. He didn't buy it. He told me he knew me too well, that women usually don't bring up open relationships unless they've cheated or they want someone else. I broke. I didn't confess everything, but I admitted there was someone at work I might think about in that context. I didn't say Ryan had confessed his attraction. I didn't say I had reciprocated. I didn't say how many nights I'd laid awake thinking about both men like some selfish child wanting 2 toys instead of 1. Daniel called it an emotional affair. I didn't know the term then. I Googled it later that night, and every article said the same thing. Emotional cheating hurts just as much, sometimes more, than physical cheating. I felt disgusting. I felt like I'd already betrayed him. And yet, the damage was only beginning. A few days later, out of nowhere, Daniel said, "If you really want to try an open marriage, I'll consider it." I stared at him like he'd grown another head. We talked, argued, set rules. He insisted on full disclosure of partners. Always protection. Always honesty. But he refused the one rule I desperately wanted, keeping it private. And the one rule that mattered most, promising we'd stay together no matter what. Daniel never refused anything I asked for, never. But he refused this. For the next few weeks, something felt off about him. I told myself he was nervous. Maybe insecure. Maybe trying to be open-minded for my sake. I convinced myself of anything except the truth. I was dragging him through hell. I avoided Ryan for a while. Strictly weather talk and nothing else. But one day he noticed. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked. "You don't talk to me anymore." I told him I was busy. He didn't believe it. The guilt burned so much that I made the next mistake. I told him about the open marriage. He lit up instantly. I should have walked away. I didn't. Asked him to meet for a drink, so I could explain more privately. He agreed, without hesitating. We met after work on a warm spring evening, sitting outside a little bar, and I told him everything. Daniel's permission, the rules, the boundaries. He never even blinked. He just said yes. Eagerly. We flirted. A lot. More than before. It felt reckless and stupid, and exciting in the worst possible way. We agreed to meet the next day at his apartment. When I got home that night, I made dinner for Daniel with shaking hands. After we ate, I sat beside him on the couch and told him I'd met Ryan for a drink and that we were planning to meet again the next night. I gave him every opportunity to stop it, to say no, to take back the open marriage idea. He didn't. He said, "So you're seeing him tomorrow?" My heart broke, and I didn't even know why. I offered to cancel. I told him he was my priority. I told him we didn't have to do this. He just said, "Let's do it." He held me that night, but there was a stiffness in his arms. Not anger, distance. He worked late in his office. Barely spoke. Barely touched me. When I crawled into bed, he stayed sitting at his desk, staring at the wall. The next morning he was gone before I woke up. He left a short text about an early meeting, and even though it wasn't like him at all, I pretended everything was normal. I dressed up for work more than usual. I hate admitting that. I wore something I knew Ryan would notice. I told myself Daniel knew and approved. I told myself this was still within the rules. But deep down, something felt horribly wrong. Daniel barely texted me that day. He didn't ask where I was. He didn't check in. He didn't say he loved me until late afternoon, and when he did, it felt like he was giving me permission to go ruin his life. After work, I went to Ryan's apartment. I wish I had turned around at the door. I wish I'd run home and begged Daniel to forget all of it. But I didn't. What happened with Ryan was intense. Not romantic. Not loving. Just physical and reckless and wrong. I left after an hour and a half, numb and guilty and sick. When I got home, Daniel wasn't there. A small part of me was relieved. I wanted to shower, scrub off the guilt, prepare dinner, create some kind of illusion of normalcy. I put candles on the table. I tried so hard to be loving, to show him he still came first. But he didn't come home. Not at 7. Not at 8. Not at 9. I called. He didn't answer. I texted. Nothing. Finally, at 9:30 p.m., he messaged, "Don't wait up." I stared at those words, feeling my entire world closing in. I didn't know where he was. I didn't know who he was with. I didn't know if I had just destroyed our marriage, or if it had been slipping away far earlier than I realized. I waited up anyway, sitting on the couch, replaying every horrible choice I had made. At midnight, I fell asleep crying. Sometime around dawn, the shower in the guest bathroom turned on. Daniel never used that bathroom. Ever. I knocked. He didn't answer. When he finally came out, wrapped in a towel, he looked straight at me and asked, calm as ice, "Did you have sex with him?" I tried to soften it, begged him not to use that word, but eventually I said yes. And then everything inside him changed. When I finally said yes, when I admitted that I'd slept with Ryan, something in Daniel's face died. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet collapse, like a light going out behind his eyes. He didn't yell. He didn't cry.
He didn't ask why.
He simply stared at me for a long moment, then said, "Okay." That hurt more than if he had screamed. I asked him where he had been. He said he'd gone dancing, hopping between bars and clubs. I could smell perfume on him. Female perfume, and when I asked who he was with, he shrugged and said it didn't matter because he hadn't slept with anyone. The way he said it, sharp, dismissive, felt like a slap. Daniel had never spoken to me like that. Never. He wasn't perfect, but he had always been respectful, gentle, soft-spoken. But now every word came out cold, clipped, like he was talking to a stranger he didn't owe anything to. I tried to ask why he used the guest bathroom. He didn't blink, didn't hesitate. Because until you get tested for STDs twice, I'm not coming near you. The humiliation hit me so hard I felt dizzy. I tried to defend myself, telling him Ryan used protection. He shot back instantly. Protection doesn't matter for everything. You've never heard of oral HPV? Herpes? You risked my health. You risked our future child's health. And just like that, in one sentence, he turned every ounce of my guilt into shame so heavy it crushed the air out of my lungs. I burst into tears. Real tears, the kind that make your whole body shake. I told him this open marriage wasn't what I wanted, that it all felt wrong, that I regretted everything. I begged him to talk to me, to not walk away from us. He looked at me with a blankness that scared me more than anger ever could. "You made your choice," he said. "Now it's my turn." He didn't say anything else, just walked away to the guest room and shut the door. That night, I lay on the couch sobbing until I couldn't breathe. I felt disgusting, ruined, empty. Not because of the sex with Ryan, it meant nothing, but because I could feel Daniel slipping away so fast I couldn't hold on. The next morning, he was gone before I woke up. No goodbye. No kiss on the forehead. No love you. Just silence. I texted him all day. He didn't reply. At 5 p.m., panic took over. And in a moment of weakness I wish I could erase from my memory, I called Ryan and asked if I could see him. Not because I wanted him. Not because I missed him. But because I was spiraling, desperate, drowning in the realization that I had ruined the one good thing in my life. Ryan could hear the stress in my voice. He told me he understood, and when we met, the first thing I said was that we needed to end things. That this whole arrangement was a mistake. That I just wanted my husband back. He nodded, not angry, not emotional. Just curious. And then, this is the part one will regret forever. He asked for one last time, saying he wanted closure, that he would never bother me again. I agreed. I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have. God, I shouldn't have. It was quick. Less than 10 minutes. Completely emotionless. I was barely present. When he finished, he looked at me with disappointment and said, "That was awful. You just lay there." I apologized. I told him the whole thing was a mistake. He shook his head, muttered something like, "I'll never understand women like you," and walked away. Those words hit me like another punch of shame I deserved. I drove home sobbing the entire time. Not thinking. Barely breathing. Just crying because I knew whatever fragile thread had been holding my marriage together, I had snapped it myself. When I walked into the house, it was empty again. No note, no sign of him. Just a silence that felt louder than anything I'd ever heard. Daniel came home at 1 a.m.
I didn't ask anything.
I didn't even look at him. I'd cried so much that day that I couldn't cry anymore. He smelled like bars, perfume, and something unfamiliar. Jealousy stabbed me. Not the petty kind, but the horrifying realization that he had the right to go out because I was the one who broke us. The next morning, he left early again. He didn't touch me.
Didn't speak to me.
He barely looked at me as he walked out the door. My hands shook when I texted him. "Can we talk tomorrow morning? Please?" He replied, "Fine. First thing, that night, he came home again at nearly 1:30 a.m. I heard him shower in the guest bathroom again. When he walked past me, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. He was humming under his breath, almost cheerful. That's when I realized he wasn't just going out casually. He was escaping me. Escaping the house. Escaping the betrayal. When morning came, I was already sitting at the kitchen table, waiting, hoping for a miracle. Daniel walked in, poured himself orange juice, and sat down without acknowledging me. I approached him slowly and sat on his lap, the way I used to when we were still us. I held his face between my hands and whispered, "Look at me." He reluctantly turned his eyes toward me, dark, empty, guarded. "I love you," I told him, trying not to break. "I made a terrible decision, not just a mistake. And I want to fix it, whatever it takes. I want you. Only you. I don't care how long it takes. I'll earn your trust back." He stared at me like he didn't recognize me, like I was a ghost of someone he used to love. "Do you still love me?" I whispered. He exhaled slowly and said, "I don't know." That sentence, it hollowed me out like someone scooped out my heart. "I can fix this," I begged.
Please.
"Please don't give up." He shook his head slightly. "I don't think you can." Desperation clawed up my throat. "You manipulated me," I said, voice shaking. "You pushed the open marriage.
You knew how I felt.
You basically set me up." His expression sharpened. "I didn't set you up. The moment you brought up open marriage, I knew something was wrong. I knew you had someone already in mind. You can't make someone be faithful, Claire. They either are or they're not. And you're not." I felt like I couldn't breathe. I begged him not to ruin our marriage, not to walk away, not to let this be the end. He simply got up, walked to the door, picked up a gym bag, and said, "I'll be home after midnight." I panicked. "Tomorrow's Easter. We're supposed to go to my parents' house at 7. They're expecting us." "Tell them the truth," he said and left.
Just like that.
No goodbye. No hesitation. I collapsed on the floor, sobbing until I physically couldn't anymore. I cried until my chest hurt, until my voice cracked, until the only thing left was a dull ache. On Easter morning, I drove to my parents alone. I lied. I told them Daniel had a work emergency. They believed me at first, but then the questions started. The doubts. The looks. I pretended to text him updates, pretended he was replying, pretended I wasn't falling apart inside. That night, I stayed at my parents' house. The next day, Monday morning, I broke down completely and told them the truth. They exploded.
Yelled.
Called me names I deserved. My sister joined in. I cried and cried, admitting everything, promising I would never make such a mistake again. Eventually, they calmed down, hugged me, told me they loved me but were disappointed beyond words. They said they'd pray for my marriage. When I drove home Monday night, my heart sank. Daniel wasn't there, but a handwritten note was on the counter. "I'm in Florida with my parents. I'll be back Sunday." We were supposed to go together in May. We had plane tickets booked. Now he was there alone because of me. I stared at that note for a long time, feeling like my entire life had slipped through my fingers. When I stood there holding Daniel's note, something inside me broke in a way I can't even describe. This wasn't the coldness of a man who was angry or disappointed. This was the silence of a man whose love had run out. He didn't text me to say he landed safely. He didn't check if I got home from my parents. He didn't ask if I was eating, sleeping, crying, nothing. Just absence. It's strange how loud silence feels when it comes from the person you love most. The days he was in Florida were the longest days of my life. I woke up, checked my phone praying for a message. Nothing. I sent him long texts, apologies, explanations, promises, but he didn't reply once. I called him 4 times. Straight to voicemail every single time. I kept thinking about how just a week earlier, I would wake up to him kissing my forehead and whispering, "Good morning, sweetheart." Now I couldn't even get a single reply. For the first time, I understood what real regret feels like. Not the kind you say casually, but the kind that sits in your chest like a stone, making it hard to breathe. I barely ate. I barely slept. I cleaned the house twice a day just to stay occupied, even though the house wasn't dirty. I kept imagining Daniel sitting in his childhood bedroom, talking to his parents about what I'd done, feeling ashamed of me. I pictured his mother crying, his father shaking his head, and Daniel telling them he couldn't come back to a woman who betrayed him. Every thought was a knife. When he finally returned the following Sunday, I heard the garage door open and my whole body froze. I didn't know if he'd walk in ready to talk, or if he'd hand me divorce papers on the spot. He came inside with a small suitcase, wearing the same tired expression I'd seen before he left. He didn't smile, didn't hug me, didn't say he missed me. He walked right past me and said, "I'll sleep in the guest room tonight." I tried to speak, but my throat closed up. I felt like a stranger in my own marriage. Later that night, I stood quietly at the doorway of the guest room and whispered his name. He looked up at me with exhaustion, not anger. "What do you want, Claire?" I walked toward him slowly, hands shaking. I want to fix this.
Please.
Tell me what to do." He rubbed his forehead. "I don't know if you can. I don't know if I want you to." That sentence felt like a punch. He continued, voice soft but brutal. "I spent the whole week thinking about what you did. About how easily you went to someone else.
Twice.
How you hid your feelings for him while pretending everything was perfect with me." I tried to explain that it wasn't feelings, that it was just attention, excitement, stupidity. I was desperate to make him understand. He cut me off. "The why doesn't matter. You did it." I sat on the floor in front of him, crying like a child. "I love you, more than anything." He looked at me with pity. "Maybe you do, but you loved yourself more in that moment." I asked him again, and again what I could do. Therapy? Counseling? A break? Anything? He just sighed. "I don't think I want a wife who can do what you did." The next morning, he left early again. He didn't kiss me goodbye.
Didn't touch me.
Just walked out. That became our routine. For weeks. He barely spoke to me except for essential things like bills or work schedules. The house felt like a museum, quiet, cold, full of memories I could no longer look at without crying. A few months passed, and slowly I felt him distancing himself not just emotionally, but physically. He started going out more, spending nights with friends. Sometimes not coming home until late. He didn't tell me where he went. He didn't have to. I knew he was trying to see if life was easier without me. The hardest part was that I couldn't blame him for any of it. Eventually, one evening, he sat across from me at the dining table and said he wanted a divorce. He wasn't angry, just numb. "I don't want to live in a marriage where I'm constantly wondering if you'll get bored again," he said quietly. "I don't want to rebuild trust from zero. I don't want to be the man who stayed with the wife who cheated." He said the word wife like it tasted bitter. I begged. I cried. I promised therapy, a fresh start, anything. But he had made up his mind. The next few months were a blur of paperwork, lawyers, awkward meetings, splitting possessions, informing family. His parents were cold to me. My parents were ashamed. Even my sister avoided talking to me for a while. Every holiday plan we ever made dissolved into nothing. When the divorce was finalized in December, Daniel looked relieved. He said he felt like he had his manhood back. I didn't understand that at first. It hurt, but I understood what he meant later. He didn't want to be seen as the man who stayed with a cheater. To him, leaving me was reclaiming his dignity. I left the courthouse feeling empty. 7 years together, gone. 5 years of marriage, erased with signatures. And I had no one to blame but myself. I thought that was the end of our story. That we'd go our separate ways forever. I was wrong. Around Valentine's Day, 2 months after the divorce, Daniel texted me. Just a simple message. "Are you free tonight?" My heart nearly stopped. I thought maybe he wanted to talk, maybe reconsider, maybe give us another chance. When he showed up at my apartment, he looked different. More confident. Colder. He came inside without much conversation, and before I could process anything, he kissed me. Hard. Desperate. Familiar. My entire body reacted like it had been starved of air, and suddenly learned how to breathe again. We ended up in bed that night. It wasn't like before. It was intense, overwhelming, almost aggressive. He wasn't making love. He was taking control, reclaiming something. And I let him. I let him, because I missed him so much I would have taken crumbs if that's all he offered. Afterwards, he got dressed and said, "This doesn't mean anything. We aren't getting back together." I looked up at him, confused and scared. "Then why did you come?" He shrugged. "Because I wanted to."
And that was it. He left.
Since then, he's been seeing me about once a week. Always when he wants. Never when I want. He never stays the night. Never calls the next day. Never kisses me gently like before. He shows up, we sleep together, he leaves. He doesn't ask about my life. He doesn't share his. It's purely physical. He made it very clear. We will never get back together. We will never remarry. We will never live together again. And yet, I keep letting him come back. Because I'm still in love with him. Because he's the only man I want. Because I ruined everything, and somehow being with him like this feels better than not having him at all. I know how pathetic that sounds. I know how desperate it looks. I know he might be using me now. Maybe punishing me. Maybe proving to himself that he's in control this time. But I can't walk away. I don't want anyone else. I don't want another future. I want the one I destroyed. I even found myself thinking, dangerously, that if he won't remarry me, maybe we could at least have a child together. Not to trap him. I would never do that. But because I want his children, and if I can't have him, maybe I could at least have a piece of him to love. A part of him that stays with me.
I know how insane that sounds.
I know how humiliating my situation is. I know anyone reading this would say I need therapy, closure, distance, self-respect. Maybe they're right. But love doesn't shut off just because you made a mistake. If anything, mine grew stronger, pathetically stronger, because losing him made me realize what he meant to me. I don't know if he'll ever forgive me. I don't know if he'll ever see me as anything more than the woman who betrayed him. I don't know if this derangement is his way of punishing me, or if some small part of him still feels something too. All I know is that I can't bring myself to let go. Not yet. Not while he still comes back, even if it's only on his terms. That's where things stand now. And I honestly don't know if I'm healing, breaking, or just drifting through the consequences of my own choices. Maybe all three. But deep down, in the smallest, most stubborn part of me, I'm still hoping for a miracle. I'm still hoping that one day he'll look at me again the way he used to. And until then, I'll take whatever pieces of him he's willing to give. To be continued, maybe not in the story but in my life.